I'm Chris Bedford with the Federalist, and the article I wrote is about how the Senate's plan to save small businesses, the one we've always been hearing about in the news these past few weeks, isn't going to cut it. And Steven Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, just made it worse. Now, the details have been coming out about this plan that was designed to, in a large part, save small businesses and keep them from going under when the U.S. government has turned off the switch and said you will no longer do business. An unprecedented thing in modern times, and one that some people say is necessary for public health. That's a debate for another day. The problem here is that not enough resources have been given, and too many constraints have been given by the U.S. Senate. So you're a small business owner, you have a restaurant, let's say, which is what a lot of these businesses are, or a catering company, or an event space, and you are allowed to get this loan or grant from the U.S. government backed by the U.S. taxpayer. The amount of money you can get is based on 2.5 times your monthly payroll. Now that might work for hotels and other groups that have huge amounts of employees. That might work for them. But if you employ 8 people, 10 people, even 30 people, that's not going to do it. Because you have other costs associated with this. You've got interest on your mortgage at the very minimum. You've got rent you might be paying if you don't own the building. You've got maintenance, you've got utilities. Maybe you're not buying all the goods and supplies you would be buying if you were open, but there's still a huge amount of money there. And you have payroll. The Senate bill says you can only get this money and have it be forgiven and not have to be paid back to the U.S. taxpayer if you keep 75% if you spend 75% of it on your entire workforce being there at once. Now you're not making any money. You don't have enough to pay for both of these things. So you're going into further and further and further debt while doing this, even with grant forgiveness. And you don't make a lot of money in general in these industries. You might make 5, 10, or 20% profits. 20% is a very successful small business. You don't have a lot of room on the margins, and this is your paycheck and your living at the end of the day. You have to heap on top of that regardless of this, if you treat it like a loan or a grant, you've got a bunch of new healthcare regulations and paid leave regulations that the Democrats pushed into this bill in exchange for their vote. Now, you might agree with these. You might think it's a good idea to have paid family leave or to have healthcare for all employees in whatever industry. But right now, you're just trying to stay afloat, and these are added costs. Now, you could just say, we're not going to abide by most of these Senate rules on the 75% of it going toward payroll, and we're going to treat this like a loan. We're just going to keep our business together, physically together, so we can open our doors and hire people when this is all over. But Steven Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, just ruined that for you. Because while the Senate gave an up to 10-year window for you to pay that loan back, up to the Treasury's discretion, Mnuchin decided that it would be best for banks and best for him and the Treasury to get this money going to make it a 2-year payback window. Now look at this as a restaurateur, for example, or another small business owner. Realistically, your first 6 months of this year are shot. You aren't making a dime. In fact, you're going further into debt. You're starting out June 1st, maybe able to open. And if you are able to open, you won't be operating anywhere near capacity. There will be new rules on how close people can be to each other. It might not even be profitable for you to open your tiny bar based on the amount of money you'll be able to make. Either way, severely decreased revenues. Now you have a decision, you're going through the second year where you're limping back. Maybe you're limping back and you've made a little bit of money. But Mnuchin says, hey, all that money you just loaned out, that you were using to stay afloat, that's all due back. And maybe you would be able to pay that. You would be able to pay that if this was a 6-year loan, a 7-year loan, a 10-year loan. But 2 years is too much. Now here's the problem. Most Americans, a lot of us, are not entrepreneurs. We don't want to take that risk, even if there's a reward at the end, because you want a sure thing. You want to know that you have a paycheck coming. It's a lot of pressure to employ people in your community. But these entrepreneurs, which thank God they exist, who are in our towns in this country, they are important. They are the restaurant that you celebrate your birthday at, where you take your children to after they've had their ball game that was sponsored by the local restaurants and businesses. They provide middle-class incomes for all the entrepreneurs. These guys don't want to own big companies. These guys and girls, They just want to work hard and employ people. You walk down your main street, and that's what your main street is. Entrepreneurs giving back, hiring people, and making your town and not just another town. They're looking around and saying, I'm losing my house on this deal. I'm not going to make a profit for years. Now I work for Mnuchin and the banks. What risk is this worth? Why don't I just leave and make a paycheck like the rest of the people? And when America's entrepreneurs quit because our government turned off the economy because of a disease from a foreign country, every single one of us suffers. The Senate and the Treasury, the President and the House of Representatives need to act now. These businesses are closing now. Or we may not have an America to come back to, at least not one that we recognized. I'm Chris Bedford from The Federalist, and I wish I had better news. Stay healthy.